At my college graduation dinner, my dad handed me an envelope with a $20 bill inside, while simultaneously giving my 19-year-old sister Maddie keys to a brand new Honda Civic. "You've always been practical with money," he said, patting my shoulder. Like I should be grateful for the insult disguised as a compliment. "Your sister needs more support for her creative journey." This, after I'd graduated summa cum laude with a double major while working 3 jobs. Maddie had dropped out of community college after 1 semester because the vibe wasn't right. I sat there staring at the crisp 20, fighting to keep my face neutral while my mom cooed over how the metallic blue of the car would really bring out Maddie's eyes. The restaurant was packed with my extended family and a few friends who kept shooting me concerned glances. "My aunt?" Martha whispered. "That's interesting." While eyeing the envelope in my hand, I just smiled and tucked it into my purse, right next to my bank statement showing the $200 I'd transferred to my parents last month when they just needed a little help with the mortgage. The evening continued with everyone taking turns gushing over Maddie's new car in the parking lot. I stood in the background, still wearing my graduation cap, watching as she squealed and posed for Instagram photos on the hood. "So blessed! Best parents ever!" She captioned the post, tagging our parents while I remained cropped out of every shot. I didn't make a scene. I didn't cry. I just silently calculated how many hours I'd worked at the campus coffee shop to cover our family's electricity bill. Last winter, while Maddie was finding herself at a yoga retreat in Arizona, as everyone started leaving, my dad asked if I was okay. I looked him straight in the eyes and said, "I'm fine. Everything is perfectly clear now." He seemed relieved, assuming I was accepting my place as usual. They had no idea what was coming. Next, update. I'm completely overwhelmed by the response to this post. Thank you all for the support and validation. Some asked if I confronted them that night. No, I was too shocked. But the $20 bill? I still have it, framed on my wall as a reminder. Have you ever been given a gift that was actually an insult? The $20 graduation gift wasn't surprising if you knew our family dynamic. Growing up, the pattern was always the same. I achieved, Maddie existed, and somehow her existence was deemed more worthy of celebration when I got straight A's in high school. My parents nodded and said, "That's expected." When Maddie managed to pass with C's, they took her out for ice cream because she worked so hard despite her creative brain. I started working at 16, first at the local grocery store, then adding weekend babysitting and summer tutoring. By the time I hit college, juggling multiple jobs was second nature. Scholarships covered most of my tuition, but textbooks, living expenses, and everything else came from my pocket. Meanwhile, Maddie got a fully funded ride through her first and only semester of community college, complete with a laptop, monthly allowance, and a study trip to Miami that featured suspiciously few textbooks in her beach photos. The real kicker started about 2 years ago, when our parents hit a temporary financial rough patch. Mom called, voice tight with worry, asking if I could help. "Just until your father's commission check comes through." I transferred $800 without hesitation. The next month, it was $650 for property taxes they forgot to budget for. Then it was car repairs, utility bills, grocery money. The requests kept coming, and I kept giving, draining my carefully built savings while working extra shifts at the campus bookstore. During this same rough patch, Maddie went through 3 expensive phases. First was photography, requiring a $2,000 camera that gathered dust after 2 weeks. Then came jewelry making, with supplies that cost more than my monthly rent. Finally, there was her wellness coaching phase, which somehow required an entirely new wardrobe from Lululemon. Each abandoned hobby was met with, "At least she's exploring her passions." Meanwhile, I was eating ramen for dinner so I could afford to send them money. The last straw came 3 months ago when I discovered my emergency credit card had mysterious charges. I'd kept that card untouched, only giving my parents the information, in case of actual emergencies. Scrolling through the statement, I found charges for concert tickets, Sephora shopping sprees, and weekend getaways, all coinciding with posts on Maddie's Instagram. When confronted, my mom said, "We thought you wouldn't mind helping your sister have some normal college experiences." College experiences, for someone who wasn't even in college anymore. Everything exploded 2 weeks after graduation. While organizing my financial documents for my apartment hunt, I found loan papers I didn't recognize mixed in with my student records. Reading through the fine print, my stomach dropped. I had apparently been covering Maddie's failed semester tuition through our shared family account, an account I opened years ago to help my parents manage bills. My hands were shaking as I drove to my parents' house, documents clutched in my white-knuckled grip. "What is this?" I asked, spreading the papers on the kitchen table. My parents exchanged that look they always did when caught, part guilt, part defiance. "We were going to tell you." Mom started, not meeting my eyes. "But with graduation coming up, we didn't. Want to stress you out? So you forged my signature instead?" My voice was surprisingly steady. Dad stepped in, chest puffed up with indignation. Family helps family. Your sister needed help, and you had the means. You're just jealous of her free spirit. You've always been competitive with her. I stood there, stunned by the gaslighting. Competitive? I've been supporting this entire family while working through college. No one asked you to, Mom snapped, suddenly angry. You always need to be the martyr, the perfect one. Maybe if you lived a little more like your sister, you wouldn't be so uptight about money. That night, Maddie posted an Instagram story. A selfie with the caption, "Don't let toxic siblings who are just jealous of your happiness drag you down." She didn't tag me, but the timing left no doubt who she meant. The final blow came the next morning. I'd stayed overnight, too exhausted to drive home. From the guest room, I overheard my parents in the kitchen, voices low but clear. Now that she's graduated, she'll have a real job, Dad was saying. We'll need her to pitch in more since we're helping Maddie move. To LA, creative jobs don't pay much at first, but she needs to follow her dream. Mom's response hit like a slap. She owes us anyway. We raised her, put her through school. I froze, hand over my mouth. They had contributed exactly $0. To my education update, you guys. I can't believe how many of you have shared similar stories. I thought I was alone in this type of family dynamic. To clarify, yes, the account was legally mine, but had my mom as an authorized user for emergencies. And no, they never asked. Before using my student loan money to cover my sister's failed semester, did your parents ever take your money without asking? That evening, I met Professor Hayes, my academic advisor, for what was supposed to be a casual graduation dinner. Instead, I found myself spilling everything between bites of pasta I couldn't taste. She listened without interruption, her expression growing increasingly concerned when I finally ran out of words. She asked one simple question. What would you do if you weren't responsible for your family? I blinked, mind completely blank. The question had never occurred to me. I don't know. You received an offer from Meridian Tech in Seattle, didn't you? She pressed. The one you were going to decline? I nodded. It was my dream job, with a salary that made my eyes water and actual benefits. But it was across the country, and I had already drafted my rejection email because my family needs me here. And what does Melissa need? Professor Hayes asked gently. That night, I couldn't sleep. I dug out my childhood photo albums, the ones I'd salvaged when my parents wanted to throw them away to make room for Maddie's painting supplies. Flipping through the pages, a pattern emerged. In every family photo, I was slightly off-center, often mid-helpful task, while Maddie was front and center, being adorable. One Easter photo struck me particularly hard. 5-year-old me helping distribute baskets while my parents beamed. At toddler Maddie eating chocolate. Suddenly, with crystalline clarity, I understood. I was never going to be enough for them. Not with perfect grades, not with financial support, not with constant availability. Nothing I achieved would ever compare to Maddie just existing. Something settled inside me. Not peace exactly, but certainty. I closed the album, opened my laptop, and wrote 2 emails. One accepting the position at Meridian Tech, and another to a Seattle apartment complex I'd bookmarked, just in case. Then I created a new document titled Family Financial Records, and began meticulously listing every penny I'd given my family over the past 4 years. I wasn't going to explode or confront them dramatically. I was simply going to stop being available, financially, emotionally, physically, and I was going to document everything so they couldn't rewrite history once I was gone. Over the next 3 weeks, I executed my plan with methodical precision. First, financial separation. I withdrew from joint accounts, transferred automatic payments to new accounts, and canceled the emergency credit card my parents had been abusing. I requested new account numbers due to suspicious activity and changed all my passwords. When my mother called asking why her Amazon purchase had been declined on our card, I simply said there must be some bank error and I'd look into it. Next, documentation. I gathered bank statements, money transfer receipts, text message screenshots, requesting money, and loan documents. The total was staggering, $42,806.53 over 4 years of college. I created a detailed spreadsheet breaking down every contribution, $7,200 for temporary mortgage help, $4,130 for utilities, $3,815 for Maddie's emergencies, and on and on. I made copies of everything. Meanwhile, I finalized my escape, signed a lease on a small but modern apartment in Seattle's Fremont neighborhood, scheduled movers for my modest belongings, and confirmed my start date at Meridian Tech. I opened new bank accounts at a credit union with no branches in my hometown. I updated my address everywhere except with my family. Through it all, I maintained perfect normalcy. I attended Sunday dinners, listened to Maddie's elaborate plans for LA, and nodded sympathetically when my parents hinted about helping with their property taxes again. I even pretended to consider their suggestion that I hold off on getting my own place to save money, meaning keep living in their spare room while supporting them. Your sister's going to need help getting established in LA, Dad mentioned casually over dinner, 1 week before my planned departure. Rent out there is crazy. We were thinking you could contribute to a little safety net for her first few months. Of why? Course, I said mildly. I'll think about what I can do. The night before I left, I wrote 3 letters, one for my parents, clinical and factual, outlining every penny I'd contributed and informing them that financial support had ended permanently. One for Maddie, shorter but direct, explaining that her creative journey would no longer be funded by her practical sister, and one for myself, to read whenever guilt might creep back in. Moving day arrived. I had deliberately chosen a Wednesday when everyone would be out. Dad at work, Mom at her book club, Maddie at her part-time barista job she was about to quit for LA. The movers were efficient, loading my few possessions in under 2 hours. I did a final walkthrough of my childhood bedroom, now stripped of everything that mattered. On the kitchen table, I placed my 3 envelopes. The parents' envelope was thick with financial records. Next to them, I set the $20 bill from graduation, now framed with a small typed note. The last contribution I'll ever make to this family. I was halfway to the airport when my phone exploded. First came confused texts from Mom. Why are there movers at our house? Then, why is your room empty? Then, call me immediately. I silenced my phone and checked in for my flight. By the time I boarded, I had 17 missed calls and a barrage of increasingly panicked messages. I scrolled through them at cruising altitude. Dad, this is completely irresponsible. What about your sister's move? Mom, you can't just leave without discussing this with us. Maddie, WTF? You ruined everything. How am I supposed to go to LA now? The realization was dawning on them. Their financial support system had just walked out by the time they reached. The part in my letter detailing exactly how much I'd contributed over the years, the tone shifted dramatically. Mom, I think there's been a misunderstanding. We always appreciated your help. Dad, let's talk about this like adults. This isn't like you, Maddie. I didn't know you were helping that much, but you can't just abandon us. Then came the guilt trips. Mom, your father isn't feeling well from the stress. Is that what you wanted? Dad, after everything we've done for you, raising you, supporting your education, Maddie, you've always been jealous of me, and now you're punishing everyone. I turned off my phone as the plane began its descent into Seattle. When I turned it back on in my new apartment, surrounded by boxes and the promise of a fresh start, there were 32 more messages, including one final threat from Dad. If you don't call us right now, don't bother calling ever again. I didn't call. Instead, I unpacked my new life, one box at a time. The next morning, my mother called from a number I didn't recognize. She must have used a friend's phone knowing I might block theirs. How could you do this to us? She demanded when I answered. Your father had to take money from his 401k to cover this month's mortgage. Maddie is devastated. I outlined everything in my letter. I replied calmly. I've been supporting this family for years. I'm not doing it anymore. But we're your family, she cried. Yes, I agreed. And for the first time, I'm treating myself like family too. Then came the final manipulation attempt. If you ever loved us at all, you'll help your sister get to LA. She has an opportunity that won't wait. I took a deep breath and said the words I'd been rehearsing. Maddie's opportunities are not my responsibility. Neither are your finances. I wish you all well, but I'm building my own life now. I hung up and blocked the number. That evening, my phone pinged with an email from Maddie, subject line, I hate you. The body contained just one line. You've ruined my life and I'll never forgive you. I archived it without replying and went back to assembling my new IKEA desk. As I worked, I felt something unfamiliar spreading through my chest. Not guilt, not anger, but something lighter. Freedom. 2 years have passed since I boarded that plane. Sometimes it feels like a decade. Other times, like yesterday, Seattle has become home in ways my hometown never was. My apartment, once sparse and echoing, is now filled with carefully chosen furniture, art from local markets, and plants that somehow haven't died despite my initial black thumb. Meridian Tech promoted me last quarter, making me the youngest team lead in company history. The irony isn't lost on me. All those years of being the practical, responsible one actually paid off, just not in the way my family expected. I used my signing bonus and part of my first-year savings for a down payment on a small but perfect condo overlooking Puget Sound. Sometimes I sit on my balcony with coffee, watching ferries cross the water, marveling at how different life can be when you're not draining yourself to fill others. My parents had to downsize. I heard through my Aunt Martha that they sold the house and moved to a 2-bedroom apartment. Dad took a second job, and Mom started working part-time at a department store, something she'd always considered beneath her. As for Maddie, her LA dreams collapsed spectacularly, without my financial safety net, her big opportunity, which turned out to be an unpaid internship at a failing lifestyle blog, lasted exactly 3 weeks before she ran out of money and had to come home. Last I checked her Instagram, she's working at the mall and posting inspirational quotes about toxic people who hold you back. The messages slowed over time. Monthly angry texts became quarterly guilt trips, then occasional fishing expeditions to see if my phase had passed. 6 months ago, Dad sent a message saying Mom needed surgery and they were struggling with medical bills. I sent flowers to the hospital, but no money. It may sound cold, but the surgery was elective, and I'd learned my lesson about enabling. The surprising bright spot has been Professor Hayes. She sends holiday cards and occasional emails checking in. Last Christmas, her card included a note that I've framed alongside that $20 bill. Sometimes the greatest gift we can give ourselves is freedom from others' expectations. Your courage continues to inspire me. I've made new friends here. Genuine ones who celebrate my successes without resentment and offer support without keeping score. My neighbor Emma has become like the sister I never really had, the kind who brings soup when I'm sick without expecting a lifetime of financial support in return. Do I regret leaving? Not for a second. Do I miss them? Sometimes I miss who I wanted them to be, rather than who they actually were. The hardest part has been accepting that the loving, supportive family I craved never really existed. I wasn't rejecting my family. I was refusing to keep participating in a dynamic that devalued me while draining my resources. The most valuable thing I've learned is that some relationships aren't meant to be saved. They're meant to be recognized for what they are, being. The responsible one doesn't mean being the eternal sacrifice. Sometimes the most responsible thing you can do is stop enabling others and start investing in yourself. That $20 graduation gift? It turned out to be valuable after all, not for its meager monetary worth, but as a crystallizing moment that finally showed me exactly where I stood. Sometimes rock bottom looks like a $20 bill in an envelope when your sister gets a car. Sometimes rock bottom is exactly the solid foundation you need to start building something new. Update. This post reached more people than I ever imagined. Thank you all for your kind words and for sharing your own stories of family dynamics and breaking free. Someone asked about my parents' recent text asking to reconnect and if I should give them another chance. After 2 years of peace, part of me is curious, but I'm hesitant. Would you reopen communication with family who only valued you for what you could give them?